Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy. Today we're comparing the new Land Cruiser to the Wrangler 4xe, and we're going to figure out which hybrid off-roader is best. I'll put a link to my car buying guide in the description down below. Let's get right into it. The Land Cruiser is powered by a turbo 2.4 liter hybrid 4-cylinder that goes through an 8-speed. Power outputs with this are 326 horsepower and then 465 pound-feet of torque. And with fuel economy, you can expect to get in the low 20s on average. Now, the Wrangler 4xe has a turbo 2-liter 4-cylinder plug-in hybrid that's paired to an 8-speed automatic transmission. It puts out 375 horsepower and then 470 pound-feet of torque. Now, when it comes to fuel economy, it depends on how much you charge it. If you don't charge it at all, you can get pretty similar fuel economy to the Land Cruiser. Now, I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe. It really helps out the channel, and it's completely free. Now, the Land Cruiser has more of a traditional SUV style with this large boxy hood, and then these smaller fenders and fender flares, versus the Wrangler has this massive hood with vents and absolutely massive fender flares. Land Cruiser can come with circular headlights or rectangular headlights. You've got fog lights down below. And although it has a plastic bumper, it does have skid plate protection underneath. The Wrangler is also rocking circular lights. And the Wrangler actually has a steel bumper from the factory and then also has skid plate protection underneath. And when you add in that winch, the Wrangler comes with quite a bit more off-road kit from the factory compared to the Land Cruiser. Now, both the Wrangler and the Land Cruiser are rocking 17-inch wheels and 33s, but something to note, this Land Cruiser is on aftermarket wheels and tires. Now, both the Wrangler and the Land Cruiser have rock rail protection on the side, but the Wrangler's got a solid front axle, whereas the Land Cruiser has independent front suspension. But the axle there on the back Land Cruiser is solid, and then look at the boxy design here, kind of again traditional off-roader. And the Wrangler also has a solid rear axle and a very boxy design. When it comes to cargo packaging, I think the Wrangler actually wins, and that's because you don't lose any storage due to the hybrid. Whereas the Land Cruiser, with a much smaller battery pack compared to the Wrangler, you lose a lot of storage on the load floor side of things. But the cargo area in the Land Cruiser overall is larger. Now, something to note, that is power, whereas the Wrangler setup is all manual. The Wrangler has a spare tire mounted on the back, whereas the Land Cruiser has it mounted underneath the vehicle. And so the back end of the Land Cruiser has a completely different style than the Wrangler. And from this angle, you can tell the Land Cruiser, again with similar sized tires, is a little bit taller than the Wrangler, and it's just a bigger vehicle overall. Now, space in the back of the Wrangler is not bad, but my knees do kind of hit up against the seat. I do, however, get vents in the rear, window controls, an outlet, and some USBs, as well as plenty of headroom back here, and these seats are actually really nice with the trim. Same with the trim on the door panel. The Land Cruiser is not massively larger in the back, but I definitely do have more space back here. I also have my own climate zone with some USB ports as well. A little bit less headroom, but still really good headroom, and then really nice trim here on the seats, and the door panel definitely feels more luxury car-like. Now, the door panel of the Wrangler definitely has that same kind of rugged feel as the rest of the vehicle. It does also come with blind spot monitoring with mirrors. Payload capacity is about 850 pounds, and then this weighs almost 5,800. And then you got these nice seats with the Rubicon logo. They also have power adjustments on the side, lumbar support. Got a nice light controls off to the side. And this has a bunch of different modes for the hybrid system. So you got hybrid, electric, and then your e-save, which charges the battery. Now, again, the front door panel of the Land Cruiser definitely looks more luxurious. It also comes with memory seats, power folding mirrors, and the mirrors do have blind spot monitoring. 1,100 pounds of payload capacity, and this weighs a little bit less at 5,700. And then these front seats are definitely nicer with the trim, power adjustable lumbar support. Also have your little trailer brake controls, button to turn on the outlets, and then you have a power adjustable steering wheel. Well, let's pop on the Wrangler. The steering wheel itself has this kind of like nice synthetic trim all around. Blue contrasted stitching. You've got stuff like adaptive cruise controls on the front, controls for the center stack. There's little radio controls in the back, and then you just have traditional stocks too. Now, this has a mostly analog gauge cluster with a digital element in the center, which you can change the information displayed. And very importantly, you've got a gauge that shows you how much range you have with fuel and with the battery. Now, this has a rear-facing and a forward-facing camera. You'll notice the dual-zone climate controls here, heated seats as well. But yeah, we've got a pretty responsive infotainment system overall. Tons of physical controls in the Wrangler for the climate, for the radio. This is for the regen. You also have your off-road cruise control button. We got some USBs, an aux switch, window controls here in the center, and then a 12-volt. 4 auxiliary switches. Shift locks for the front and the rear. We have an off-road plus mode, which again, just off-road driving mode, and then sway bar disconnect. This does have 2-wheel high, but it also has 4-wheel auto and high part-time and low as well. Cool shifter for the 8-speed auto. Got a regular brake there, some cup holders, and then the center console itself's not massive, but you know, gets the job done. And if you actually press this button here, the whole top will go back. So the Jeep is a convertible, which is a cool feature. And let's start up the Land Cruiser. This also has soft touch synthetic material around the steering wheel, but it definitely feels a little bit more premium. But functionality is pretty similar with adaptive cruise control, controls for the center stack, full digital gauge cluster on the Land Cruiser, very customizable, just like the Jeep's cluster in terms of the information you can display. But I will say this is more customizable because there's more screen real estate. Now this comes with a 360 camera system. It also fills in underneath the vehicle as you move. And the infotainment system is actually shockingly similar in size, and response time's pretty similar overall. Now this has a few more luxury features, so dual zone climate like the Wrangler, but heated and ventilated seats and heated steering wheel, so you got ventilated seats whereas the Wrangler doesn't. And when you look at some of the trim in the interior, again, you can see it's kind of more luxe. This does also come with a wireless phone charging pad, a bunch of USBs. And just like the Wrangler, it has off-road drive modes. That's the multi-terrain select. It also has crawl control. The Wrangler, it does have their own off-road cruise control system too. Now this is a full-time four-wheel drive system, but still has four-wheel low. It has a center and a rear diff lock and a stabilizer bar disconnect. So it doesn't have a front diff lock like the Wrangler, but still has quite a bit of kit. Now the center console isn't really bigger than the Wranglers at all, but it is a refrigerator, which is a nice plus. This also has a camera rear view mirror and then just a traditional center if this is a regular SUV, not a convertible. When it comes to pricing, the Wrangler is going to be in the mid-70s as equipped roughly. And the Land Cruiser is going to be a little bit less, but not that much less. Let's take them out and see which one performs the best. Wrangler 4xe when it comes to the driving experience. Well, first off, being a plug-in hybrid, you actually have the ability to do regen. So it kind of has this somewhat one pedal like experience with the driving, which is pretty unique in the off-road world. There's not a lot of hybrids in general, especially plug-in hybrids. Now with that being said, the powertrain can feel disconnected at times, where sometimes you put your foot down on the gas and it doesn't go quite as quick as you might think, because it's taken a second for the engine to turn on or to go down in gear, and then the electric power, it's kind of like, am I going to give it to you? I'm not going to give it to you. It's just kind of, it's not the worst on the planet, but it is kind of all over the place at times, and so it's something to be aware of in terms of the performance that you can get out of the powertrain. Like, they're not bad, just not, it's not super seamless. That's a good way to put it. Now you're gonna get quite a bit of wind noise, quite a bit of tire noise. The Wrangler, I mean, they've made the glass and everything thicker. It's more insulated than it used to be, but at the end of the day, it is still a convertible, so you're gonna get more noise with this. So it's not the worst daily driver on the planet, but it is just a little bit noisier. That being said, the wheels don't like do any crazy wheel humming. You just hear the tires. Which is nice, because sometimes solid front axle vehicles, the wheels will kind of, you just have this like sound transfer across the axle constantly, and it can be kind of noisy. I feel like old Wranglers kind of did that, but yeah, the new ones seem to be much better. But yeah, I mean, it's a Jeep, right? It's kind of intended more for off-roading, but the new Jeeps are definitely more luxurious. I mean, the seats, the power seat function, you know, having dual zone climate, having heated seats, like there's a lot more luxury features built into this compared to what Wranglers used to have in the past. But compared to a lot of modern vehicles, right, you're gonna be conceding a little bit when it comes to daily drivability, but you gain convertible fun and crazy off-road capability, having diff locks front and rear and solid axles front and rear. 250 Land Cruiser compared to the Wrangler. Now the first thing you notice as soon as you get in, this is much more luxe, much more daily drivable. I wouldn't say the suspension comfort is like night and day better, but it is slightly more comfortable compared to the Wrangler. The steering is way better, having independent front suspension, and just this new rack from Toyota it's really good. It's very direct. It's also, it's like light. It's a really good steering rack. It's one of my favorites in a larger SUV. The seats are more comfortable. The glass actually isn't as thick. Like you can hear, the glass actually isn't as thick in the Land Cruiser, funny enough, but it doesn't have to be because it's not a convertible. So they don't have to, like, again, try to make up for a lack of insulation in other places because you got a regular roof and all of that. But it would be cool if they did more insulation on the side, but actually I guess they do. It's called the Lexus LX. That's how you get more insulation in this platform. You gotta pay over 100 grand. Anyways, when it comes to the powertrain, this powertrain is actually very rough when it's warming up. Once the engine's warmed up though, it's actually really smooth and it doesn't feel as disconnected. Now there are times where you kind of get on and there's a little bit of lag because it's like, oh, am I just going to do electric power? It's not a plug-in hybrid obviously, but it does you know, do a little bit of full electric driving. So yeah, sometimes there's a little bit of lag, but overall it's actually a pretty seamless system, and I don't really have a lot of complaints on that front, to be frank. And I will say that just the overall performance, I kind of like it more than the Wranglers, even though it doesn't feel quite as, I mean, you do feel the power deficit. It doesn't feel quite as torquey and stuff. The overall performance, I think, makes up for the slightly lower power output this has. So this is kind of an odd comparison, but again, the price point's very similar, and a lot of people are going to be cross-shopping these two. So what it comes down to is, I think, how much you're off-roading. If you're not going to be off-roading as much, I mean, this is obviously a better vehicle for on-road driving with the independent suspension and not being a convertible, so it's quieter, and with all the luxury features and everything, it's just quite a bit nicer, in my opinion. So, yeah, and if you're going to do a lot of off-roading, I think that the Wrangler is going to be the choice to go for. But I will say, I am going to be doing an off-road comparison with this, the Wrangler and the Grenadier, so we'll see if the Wrangler's like that much better. But in theory, it should be better with a better articulation and having a diff lock up front. Let me know which one you'd go for, but I think for, like I said, daily driving purposes, yeah, the Land Cruiser is definitely going to win.